what it is. Ktsu, it's a pretty clickbaity title you got there. But I do mean it. I am kind of worried. The release of the drip marketing for Silver Soldier Anby, Pulchra and Trigger made me insanely hyped. And honestly, during my streams, I felt like everybody in my chat was excited. Poster Girl's getting a 5-star, and it was a good surprise. Come on, everyone loves Amby. But like all good Gacha fans, we couldn't really keep our pecker in our pants. And as soon as the leaks for her came out, everybody was onto them like white on rice. Big shout out to Leifa, man. Those translations are amazing. What we did notice while reading those is that there's this special new game mechanic that is kind of unique to only those characters. In this case, it's called the additional attacks, and that probably means that now we just got these specialized team archetypes in ZZZ. That's what I like to call them. You know, characters in gacha games that are specifically designed to work with each other, and sometimes, God forbid, only with each other. That's the reason for the title of the video. You know, the endgame mechanics for gacha games are usually based off the new characters that they're putting out, so that's what I'm really worried about. And of course, I might be getting a little bit ahead of myself here, but I do have a little PTSD in that regard, and I don't think my worries here are unwarranted. Out of the big four in gacha games, they really seem to have some sort of fixation over one specific type of endgame, which is the time-limited DPS check, you know, beat this as fast as possible type. You know the one. You've probably did this a billion times. And I really don't know why they are so obsessive with this kind of game mode. But hey, all my problems with that, I've talked about them a million times, and it's really a topic for another video. The one thing about these kind of endgame modes that I do want to talk about is that it's really easy for developers to just make this a character check. Then what it actually should be, you know, like, can you play the game properly check instead of anything else really. And one of the biggest reasons why ZZZ has become my main gacha currently is that it actually has different types of endgame modes, like the ambush node or the tower. Yeah, I know, freaking miracle. But as usual, it also has the time-limited end games that we were talking about. I don't know, man. Sometimes it seems to me like Hoyo upper management must have like a knife to their throat or something. Better put that fucking thing in there. Namely, in ZZZ, these ones are called the critical node and the deadly assault. However, I've been playing Zenless Zone Zero since launch, and here's the thing. Critical node has always been fine. Playing well, you can even beat it without the right element for DPS. And even on deadly assault. And sure, I've always had my good fare of criticisms towards that one. Because to me, it's way more of a have you gotten all the characters check than anything really. It's what I was talking about before. However, here I have seen and even done myself a lot of creative teams that it just worked. Because I'm sorry, I refuse to not use my Jane Doe in an endgame. I have to put her in somewhere and make her work. The thing that I want to say is that this freedom, to a certain extent, that I've had in Zenless Zone Zero, you know, being able to clear the same endgame with tons of different characters and team builds, even when at least half of my characters have very mediocre substat rolls. It reminds me a lot of Star Rail. 1.x and like early 2.x, man. That shit was fun. Plus, I feel like in ZZZ, there's a much bigger gap that your player skill can fill to make up for, you know, the mediocre substats that you might get on rolls, dude. At least when compared to Star Rail. I mean, there's really not much you can do in a turn-based game, dude. Because if there's one thing I will give that game is that it must be insanely hard to keep a turn-based game fresh and fun for all players, especially veterans. Seriously, a turn-based game must be the worst thing to put in a live service model. But still, it really was something special during that first year. You see, again, on the big four, the endgame modes usually have something we call an environment. You guys know what that is? It means that whenever we get a new endgame rotation, those nodes also have special buffs that are going to enhance certain characters or even certain types of team comps. And Star Rail, obviously on the path in trying to make new things and enhance existing game mechanics, started creating certain types of characters like Break Effect and Follow Up, you know, as full archetype of teams. And of course, you could say something that like, you know, DOT Nihility or even just the normal hyper carry that you used to have were sort of the same thing. But to me, it really felt that back in the day, you could mix and match tons of characters and just tons of teams in different and creative ways that still could nab you the win if you strategized correctly. But whenever Harmony MC and Firefly came out, those two characters just felt like, you know, this is a break team. These are how they're gonna work. You're not gonna be able to do like a hyper carry, you know, Tingyun, Bronya, Firefly team. That's not gonna work. You know, these characters are meant for each other. They need to be together. We're shipping them even in game. So this is what it is. When back in the day, dude, I could even get away with doing like Topaz Kafka follow up with, I guess, Ruan Mei. I don't know. And still, Clear MOC12. We get it, K2. We get it. You love the past. Yeah, I really am driven by nostalgia, even if it's nostalgia from a year ago. But recently, we got something like Aglaya, right? And we got Sunday as a new support that gives energy for that 350 energy requiring ult. Didn't go for Sunday? Oh, well then you better go for that E1. That'll be $200, by the way. Sorry. Getting mad again. Back to the main point. The addition of characters whose main gameplay mechanics work around this new additional attack style of play really seems like it's starting to create these archetypal teams in ZZZ. And sure, we have the traditional attack stunner support and then the double anomaly disorder team, which I guess you can call them archetypes too. But there are a ton of ways to build them, man. It's never that set in stone. Hell, you can stick stunners with anomaly, man, and that shit can still work. I mean, Miyabi makes everything work, really. In this case, I am a little concerned. So if you guys don't know and you don't mind spoilers, then let me give you guys a little rundown about how Silver Soldier Anby, Trigger, and Pulchra are supposed to work. When you play Trigger and Pulchra properly, they're gonna go support character on the enemy's ass. Except instead of buffing from off-field, they're just gonna go ape shit with off-field attacks instead. These off-field attacks are what we are calling them right now in, early leak translation, additional attacks. That's where we get it from. And once you got them both doing their thing, you switch up to your Amby, whose attack marks enemies. That's where her core passive and additional abilities come in. At rank F, the core passive gives Amby a 20% damage up on marked targets, but also it increases the critical damage of all additional attacks done by the entire team by 30% of Amby's crit damage value, which is a whole lot, man. If you guys decide to go for Amby's double engine, then that thing is going to give you upwards to 118% more crit damage value for most of the time. But as strong as that is, that's another can of worms. We're not going to talk too much about it now. On top of everything else, she gains her additional ability that buffs the entire team's additional attack damage on marked enemies by a further 30%. And of course, there's a lot more nuance to the character's kits, but this is the main mechanic that I want to focus on. But I think it's very, very easy for us all to see how much these characters have been designed from the ground up to just work together. And that's why it's not a clickbait. I've seen this happen in Star Rail before, and to me, this is very, very similar, if not the exact same thing. But the problem here, guys, isn't that you're making these new teams to work together, or that you're making these characters as just are optimal with each other instead of others. I don't think that's inherently a bad thing for the game or for the players, just by itself. The problem here is that the end game, all these nodes that give you a lot of, free polychromes, they are always designed from the ground up to enhance the experience of these new characters. And I bring this up because maybe critical node will be fine. There's no really, environment there. But I'm fairly certain that whenever these characters do come out, Deadly Assault is going to have one of the nodes that heavily favors additional attacks. And that is going to be very restrictive on players that just want to play a different type of electric team, man. Maybe they just finished building their Harumasa and they just don't want to build another electrical DPS right now, dude. Could you imagine if, the 5,000 bonus points that you're going to be able to get in one of the nodes on the next Deadly Assault means that you have to use additional attacks and that's all you can do to get those points? And I get that some people don't care, man. I absolutely understand. And if you don't care, I'm glad you don't, really, because you're not going to be as frustrated as a lot of other people. And believe you me, I think it's actually a very good idea that you only need A ranks to be able to get all the polychrome rewards off of Deadly Assault. I think that's a good thing to do, because 95% of the people that play this game don't even clear all of that. But holy shit, does it frustrate me. And guys, I'm not even going to have a problem. I'm gonna go for Amby and Trigger like crazy. But I don't know, man, for people who, I guess Ting Yi is their favorite character ever made, they might not be able to make it, man. I think it's insanely unfair. Especially for games like these that require so much time and investment to actually fully build a character. Pisses me off just thinking about it. But I do want to end on a positive note. The thing is, I'm saying all of this, but it's just worries, man. There's absolutely no guarantee that all these problems I'm bringing up here are gonna happen. Maybe I'm kind of doom posting. I haven't really gotten to see any actual endgame DPS calculations. For all we know, all these buffs that these characters give each other on their additional attacks might be simply to enable that kind of team comp instead of making that the absolute optimal way to play them, because that's very beneficial for new players, man. Power creep to a certain extent is a good thing. Like if you start now, you're just going to be able to pull for Amby and Pulchra, and then if you get Trigger, it's only going to get better, right? So you don't need to worry too much about things that are already in the game that you don't got. And then you're going to have a ballin' team, man, that can probably carry you through like 90% of the game. And even though you're sacrificing her additional ability and, you know, half of the core passive, you still do get the bonus damage against marked targets, which could mean that even when built standardly, Amby should totally work with something like Tingy Nicole or Tingy Irina. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it's not going to be optimal that way, but hey, it can still work. And if that's the way that they're balancing things, then that's a big W. The problem here is if her performance outside the additional attack team ends up being so underwhelming that you can't really use her anywhere else, or with anyone else for that matter. To me, that type of design is unnecessarily restrictive for a casual gacha game. It's bad for the players, and it's ultimately bad for the game. But we'll see. Honestly, the ZZZ devs make me a little bit more positive about it. And even the Star Rail devs, very recently, they came out saying like, listen guys, we know what you're saying. We kind of need to buff the old characters in the game to make them like more relevant again, which is great. So I think with these kinds of things happening and with the backlash that they have been getting, maybe I'm just, you know, maybe I'm worrying too much. But just to finish off, if you guys want my 2 cents, I think it's completely fine for newer characters to just face roll the endgame. Like, we get it, Hoyo, you want to, you know, ride the hype, make the new characters feel insane. That's okay. It makes people even feel like they got their money's worth. I get it. And with that in mind, to me, a good critical node is one where with the new Amby team, you're gonna beat the Lightning Weak node in like 40 seconds, maybe even less, dude. Where the traditional Lightning teams or Amby with a different sort of team should beat it in like, you know, a minute or 2. That's fine. But please, for the love of God, don't force people to play additional attack in Deadly Assault. And that's really it. But what do you guys think? Maybe I am overthinking this too much, man. Maybe I am kind of doom posting, or maybe you guys think it might get even worse. Let me know in the comments. Other than that, thank you so much for watching the video. It means a lot. If you like the discussion, man, then be sure to give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it, especially since, you know, kind of small. If you guys want to ask me something personally, I'm all for it. Just join my live streams. I stream every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, gacha games. Other than that, I've been your boy Ktsu, signing out.